It's tiny, but I can just about read it.
Bless your heart.
It's an absolute joy to see you. My name is Eunice. I'm one of the leadership community of this fab church, and I'm going to be leading this afternoon alongside many other people joining in, which is the good thing about Inclusive Gathering. Our pastor Danielle will join in a bit later. She's going to sing, and we're delighted to have Simon J here from the Haven Project. He's going to be joining in. We want to say that whatever has brought you here this afternoon, whether you are gay or straight, whatever your gender orientation, whatever your identity, you are so welcome. Important things to know. You can have a cup of tea whenever you fancy it. Okay? You don't have to wait to be invited. You just go to the back table, get whatever you want. If you want a bit of time out, it's fine to get up and walk around. It's fine to get up and go outside if you need a breather. Please, please, you're amongst friends and we want you to be really comfortable. We want you to sense a warmth of welcome. It's just a joy to see you. We're going to start this afternoon. Let me tell you the plan for those of you who haven't been before. So we're going to have a song, and then we're going to have a prayer. There's a sheet on your tables that you can follow or not follow if you fancy. You see how everything's optional here. Are you getting the vibe? Are you getting the vibe? Do it if it's helpful, don't if it's not. The prayer is on the page, let your God with you. And then I'm going to interview Simon, who's come along. And the theme of this afternoon is called To Love Your Neighbour as Yourself. And we are going to, what I'm hoping is that you really get a sense of God is here. God doesn't need inviting into this building. God is already here. God has rocked up. What we need to do is wake up to the presence of God ourselves, because God is already here. So I'm going to invite Pete and Danielle to come and sing. The song is Beautiful Things. You're invited to join in again. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Join in if you want to. If you're a terrible singer, join in. If you're a beautiful singer, join in. If you can't be bothered, don't worry.
So the words are on the back of that small sheet on the table, although I have discovered one sheet without any words on, so...
Just make them up.
Let's join together. Oh, there's pain. I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. Oh, this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come up from this ground at all? You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of us. All around, hope is springing up from this old ground. Out of chaos, life is being found in you. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of us. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of us. You make me new, you are making me new. You make me new, you are making me new. You make me new, you are making me new. You make me new, you are making me new. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things, you make beautiful things out of us.
Let us pray. Let your God love you Ask nothing. Be silent. Be still. Let your God look upon you. That is all God knows. God understands. God loves you with an enormous love, wanting only to look upon you with love. Quiet. Still. Let your God love you. Holy God, you are here. Holy God, we recognize that you love each one of us to bits. That only you know every single thing about each one of us. You know what brings us joy. You know what has hurt us this week. You know our disappointments. You know the things we've stuffed up. The things we wish we'd said. The times when we've just been silent. When maybe we should have said something. Holy God, help us to recognize there is nothing we can do to earn your love. There is nothing we can do to stop you loving us. Help us to let you love each one of us. Help us to sit in the waterfall of that love this afternoon. Help us to recognize the wonder of God who shows up, the God who exists, the God who wants to be in relationship with each one of us, the amazing reality of our awesome God. Give us the strength, give us the courage to open our hearts, to let our God love each one of us. Amen. The theme of this afternoon is called to love your neighbour as yourself, based on the text. It's on the bit of paper, as usual. Look at it if it helps, ignore it if paper doesn't help you. Matthew 22 says this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and, there's massive big and. Love your neighbour as yourself. And so this afternoon we're going to take a bit of time to think about what does it mean for us to open our hearts to God. And that was why we had You Make Beautiful Things and that statement that no matter how we feel, we cannot change how God feels about us. And that's just amazing. So God loves each one of us to bits. And this invitation to love God with our heart, our mind, our soul. We're going to think a bit about that. And love your neighbour as yourself. We're going to hear first of all from our guest, Simon J. We're delighted to have Simon with us from Haven. Yay!
It does feel weird being a guest, actually.
Does it?
I don't actually feel like a guest.
Lovely. I'm glad you don't feel like a guest. I'm glad you don't feel like a guest. The things that we're collecting this afternoon are going to the Haven, the community project. So we've invited Simon just to tell us a bit about what happens at the project, why you do this, what have you learned. But we'll start with number one. Tell us what happens at the community project.
Great. So I guess question for you guys. Food banks. Who's ever heard of food banks? Yay, of course we have. Of course we have. Who's heard of food pantries? Great. Okay, and so we're getting the difference. So I guess I want to briefly talk to you about my week doing food pantry. Is that all right? Just because you've collected stuff we're going to give to our food pantry. So food banks, obviously, as you know, I remember a few years back when I thought there's something wrong here. When somebody came into the Haven, we're not too far away, we're in Quinton. You guys know where the Haven is? Don't you know a bit about it? It's a community project run by people. Yeah, that's good enough. Food bank. They came into the Haven, and they were in pieces actually. They came upstairs, and I invited them into to where I was. They just basically said, Simon, and they apologised to me. They said, I'm really, really sorry. They said, I need a food voucher. So I've never had a food voucher before, ever. And I just feel just so shameful about needing one. So I goes, oh, don't be sorry, you need a food voucher. So I said, sit down. And then you have to, if any of you have given out food vouchers, some of you may have, you have to get this piece of paper and look at them and say, right, tell me about your life. How many kids have you got living in there? And then you ask that horrible question, why are you in such a crappy place? I mean, you don't phrase it like that, but you have to tick this box. And I did that, and I thought, I have all the power here. On my signature, this person gets to have food on their table. And obviously, I don't like it. We do still give out food vouchers because we have to. So we started thinking there's got to be a better way. And then we, as you know, so I won't go into the details too much, started discovering this thing called food pantry, where people, they sign up, they come in, they pay, so there's a bit of a transaction that goes on, and then they get to shop, pick food out that they want, so they get a certain amount of items, as you know, they put it in the basket, they come, and then we sort of like put it in shopping baskets, and they take it. So it's a real place for them to shop. And while they're at Pantry, we also have our places of welcome. You guys know about places of welcome, yeah? No? Oh, we have a place where anybody who's anybody can come and have a cup of tea, jack of potato, bit of food, and it's just a community for us. So quite often people stay around. And it's so much more of a dignifying thing. So that's sort of like food pantry. So that happens on a Friday. So my week is spent, I've got a great volunteer team there, so I don't do too much of this anymore. Yes. So my week is spent, we go on Wednesday, we have a big van that goes to Incredible Surplus and Gallagher. They pick up a ton of food for man, mostly tins and pasta and stuff. That then gets stocked back at the Haven, and then on the Thursday we go to Fairshare down somewhere, Nechel's I think, and we get sort of our ambient food as well as some chicken and stuff like that. That then comes back. I then go to supermarkets, pick up food. We occasionally get food coming in, so that all stocks in our shelves, and then at 10 o'clock on a Friday we open up the food pantry. We're normally averagely are getting around about 40 to 50 people each week at the food pantry, each representing, I would say, another 3 or 4 people in their family. So we're sort of like getting food out probably around about 300 people a week. Before Christmas, because we've been going for less than a year on the food pantry. Before Christmas, we were getting about an average about 20 people a week. Since Christmas, we just have been inundated. And probably my biggest stress point is lying in bed at night thinking, how do we get more food in the pantry for Friday? Because there's nothing more when people arrive and all the food's gone. And you just go, I'm so sorry. I know this is crap. So that's my biggest stress point.
Yeah, I really get that. So, Simon, do you want to say a bit about why do you think, we know the answers, don't we, suppose, why do you think the increase is happening, and how do people feel who come to the food bank? What does it mean to the people who come?
Right, so food pantry.
Food pantry, sorry.
We'll go food pantry. Love it. Absolutely love it. So our biggest amazingness is simultaneously my biggest nightmare. And that is that we just, it's inclusive. What a nightmare. No, that is we just say anybody can come and volunteer and get involved. And it creates such beauty and chaos all at the same time. It's just wonderful. And we really want to try to have this culture that this isn't a place that people who are poor come, or people in need come, or people that... This is just a place that people come. And it creates it's a fantastic... You can come down anytime you want. It's just a fantastic community feel. There's shouting, there's people taking mickey and ribbing each other, mainly me actually. There's occasionally a few proper full-on arguments, but ultimately it's just a space that people go, we really love it, because people see us and it's just a bit like our home.
Yeah, lovely. Fab, thank you, Simon. And a personal question. Why? What motivates you to do this? And this is you, not the food, just you. Why do you do this?
Yeah, got it. I could give you two answers. One answer, because I got no choice. No, that's a lie actually. We all have choices, do we? I don't know. It's because, so I'm 50 years old, I know, you're shocked, don't faint.
If you were guessing, what would you say? Higher? Lower? No, better not go there.
Lower, obviously. So my good friend Joel, who's known me probably for about 30 years, I don't know, over that time, I have not seen anything of such beauty than hanging out in my community. Now, I'm not dissing your community, I'm sure it's beautiful, but no, it's every day, it's so beautiful. The people, the stuff that goes on, it's that real, it's sort of like parable of finding the treasure of great beauty in the field. Go out and sell everything you got in terms to buy the field. I wake up most days with a sense of anxiety, because I do, because you have no idea what's going to face you today, and everything and anything just happen. But by the end of the day, every day I come home, and I'm a little bit buzzing, but I'm just a little bit in awe, and a little bit in love with people, because they're just beautiful.
That's gorgeous, isn't it? When Jesus said, why should we love our neighbours? Because actually it changes us, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The love that flows is a two-way thing. Okay, the final question. In doing all of this, what have you learned?
Okay, so I reflect a lot on that, a little story when Jesus says, see those birds of the air, they don't worry, but the Father that loves them looks after them, and again the lilies in the field. And I reflect a lot on that story because I just think, what a pile of crap, it's just not true, is it? And
Can't wait to see where this is going.
Exactly. Because I think it's true if you, and again, where I've grown up, and the churches I've been part of, and then I moved into my neighbourhood, it's true if you're part of predominantly a white middle class church community. And I get that story, because God does seem to meet your needs, doesn't he? You need to raise money to go on that mission trip that's going to cost you £2,000. You stand up in front of church, you say, I'm praying, I've got to give the money, and surprise, surprise, envelopes come through the door, because actual fact, and that's good. So I was going, God, what is that all about? And I think that looking at working with, involved in food poverty and stuff, for me, I think that it's God saying, I have given you everything that you need. We panic that we're going to run out of food. We can't have any people coming in this country because we can't meet their needs, or we need to cut down the population. But I think the promises God is saying, look at my provision. My provision is over and above and abundant, with plenty left over for all of you to be satisfied. And I think the problem isn't the promise of God, the problem is the greed of us.
Yeah.
And you see it because doing what we are doing, as you guys know, you go to supermarkets and it breaks your heart to see how much food is being chucked out and wasted simultaneously. How many people cannot put food on their table?
Simon, thank you so much. Simon's going to join us at the end when you've had a bit of a chance to chat and take some questions. So thank you so much. I want you to take all that now into the text. Jesus was asked a lot of questions. Someone has suggested he was asked 309 questions. That depends on which version of the Bible you look and how you define a question. But someone has suggested that he was asked 309 questions and that actually he answered very few of them. And if he did answer them, he didn't answer them in a straightforward way. He kind of went all around the houses and you weren't entirely sure. But when Jesus was asked this, so here's the whole thing that this bit of text come from. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbour as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." It's interesting, isn't it? So Jesus answered this question really, really clearly. Made the commandment, love God, love yourself, love other people, and he put it together. Many of you will know perhaps it's a quote. So Jesus is quoting a bit of Deuteronomy and also a bit of Leviticus. So the first one, love the Lord your God, is in Deuteronomy. The second one is in Leviticus. Jesus goes, these have got to go together. Why did he do that? Because people were doing this one, but not this one. So Jesus said, there's number one and there's number two, and they're a package deal. And they're not an optional extra on a menu of discipleship. You know, you get your menu in a restaurant, and there's side orders at the bottom. I like side orders. The side order of chips is something. I often have salad and feel good and order a plate of chips. It's a balanced diet, thank you. I often say to people, my favourite things all begin with C. Chips, cheese, chocolate, and concrete. I like concrete. I like big cities. That's the random side. And that's a good on the countryside. If Jesus actually answered a question straight and gave a straightforward answer, what I want to think about this afternoon is, I think the church has done a bit better on this than it has on this. It's loved God. So the church is full of worship. The church is full of what does it mean to worship. Loving yourself, well, that depends on who you are. The church hasn't done such a great job of encouraging people to accept that they are loved. And loving our neighbours as ourselves, well, that's interesting, isn't it? That interweaving thing of, because some people struggle to love themselves. So we have to also think about, what about those days when we find it hard to love ourselves? That isn't what Jesus is suggesting. Jesus is really suggesting these two things have to go together. To love God, to love yourself, and you love your neighbour, packaged in. The tendency, isn't it, to think of neighbours as people who live beside you. I've never lost the neighbours. Everybody loves good neighbours, and Jason and Kylie getting married. I was brought up with that programme. So when I think of neighbour, I think of the person next door. Jesus didn't mean that. Because Jesus meant the whole community. And when somebody said to Jesus, hang on a minute, who is my neighbour? And wanted to, basically, you only have to look after your own tribe. If they look like you, act like you, if they identify the same as you, look after them. That was the answer that was wanted, and Jesus blew that out of the water by saying, So the answer to who is my neighbour, this is annoying, is everybody. It's everyone who goes to the food pantry, as Simon has mentioned. It's everyone sat in here. It's everyone who disagrees with us. That's a tough thing. Now that's unpleasant, isn't it? I mean, it would be so reasonable if Jesus said, Eunice and Danielle, you love each other because you're lovely. I do love Danielle, so it's not hard. And I often realise that the people I surround myself with, my friends, often look a little bit like me and share my principles and share my prejudices. It's not hard to love Danielle. It's not hard at all. It's a piece of cake. She's adorable. Somebody who has the opposite opinion to Danielle, somebody who doesn't think inclusive church is a good idea, someone who actually is really critical of food pantries and who thinks food banks are a load of crap, they are really, really hard to love. And Jesus says, you don't get to choose. You don't get to choose. That's annoying, isn't it? It doesn't mean you've got to stand up and say things, and it doesn't mean you have to put up with their rubbish. There is no way that you have to listen to what people say who disagree with you and put up with abuse. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that there's this big, generous, love God, love yourself, love your neighbour. So, I want to invite you to, around your tables, to think about, well, who do you think is your neighbour who needs loving? What does that look like for you personally, or in your community, or an inclusive gathering? Who is it that's easy to love? Start on that page. Who's easy to love? And who is God nudging you to love, who's not so easy to love? For me, honestly, that's some members of my family who are not easy to love because they're very objectionable. I have to guard myself, but Jesus didn't say, love the people you like, love the people who treat you well. Somehow, there's a stretch. So around your tables, I just want to invite you, and there's some pens and there's a bit of green card to do a bit of feedback on. When you've had, I'm going to give you about 10-15 minutes for this, then I'm going to invite Simon back, and we're going to just hear your observations and hear your chat. Is that okay? Make sure you get a cup of tea if you want one while you're talking. Friends, a minute and I'm going to invite you back. can I invite you back? And Simon, would you like? I would like to invite you back. I thought it would be lovely if Simon and I both shared in this reflection, as Simon, as our guest, has offered input, and just respond to some of the things we receive on the table, Simon. So I wondered if I could start here next with some of the things that we would, doesn't have to be a question, it can just be observations, kind of the things from your table. Go for it.
I won't go through all of them, but I think a couple of them were people, one of the first things we came up with was people whose sort of affluence or wealth makes them just generally unkind and uncaring. And you kind of think, you're fine, or they think, well, I'm right, so nobody else matters. That kind of person seems to be very...
Let's just hang on a minute. Shall I just feed that back so the people on Zoom make sure we hear? So tell me if I haven't summarised this correctly. So we're thinking of people who are hard to love, people who have a lot of money, who are affluent, who... What was the next bit?
Because of that kind of don't care about anybody else.
And don't care about other people. So Jesus had a bit to say about that, didn't he? Just a little bit. And interestingly, you know, that parable where Jesus, when the rich man came to Jesus and said, you know, and he said, so what must I do? And he said, well, give up your money. Jesus didn't tell everyone to give up their money. He didn't say the same thing to everyone. He treated people differently. But the ability to live well with your wealth is a challenging thing. Simon, do you have anything, observations of it from that, from your experience?
Yeah, I think just very quickly, I mean, on our table we talked about polarisation. I think the difficult thing is that I think we get a quite a polarised story about people with wealth. And I think I have to check myself, because when I find myself in a context where people do not have a lot of stuff, and then I sort of like live in these different worlds actually, and then I go to another world, you know, where potentially I could, sit down with rich people with a stupid amount of money, and I have to check myself, because I think, how do I maintain a relationship with this person and then go back to my neighbourhood the next week? Most of the time, if I'm honest with you, people that I know that do have an extreme amount of money, you know, they are humans, they are people, and they actually do want to go, I'm really interested in social issues. And I think I just need to myself be careful that I don't do the narrative that people with money are the enemy.
Absolutely. Jesus didn't say that, did he? I find it interesting that Jesus, my spin on what Jesus said was, resist binary thinking. I don't think he actually said that, I don't know what the Greek binary thinking is, but that kind of right, wrong, good, bad, in, out. Jesus, it seems to me, Jesus resisted that and said, actually, some people can live well with wealth, some people can't. Some people who are impoverished don't do the right. You know, he just resisted that thinking. And I think, because it's far more messy and far more chaotic than that. Yeah. But for us, we tend to think we can easily think in those terms.
Yeah, I mean, I do challenge them in terms of, I do say, I know somebody who borrows money. It's a fake, he's a relation of mine. He borrows money off of rich people to lend to other rich people. He's the middle person and makes a huge amount of money out of it. And we talk about it, but also he listens back and goes, do you know what? I do want to make a difference, just don't know how. So maybe we need to be offering more opportunities.
That's really helpful, thank you. Gary, yes? Do you want to come to the mic?
Now I've got to make sure it comes out. No, for me, some of it is the risk of, it can be really easy when you've got a life in a certain way to draw the line at when it might affect you, when a change in structure might affect you. And I think that's the challenge, is when people won't give and recognise the transformation that they might have to go through with society to make a more equal world. And that's a tough one, because it's very structural. And we find, I think, in government, that's what happens. When hard times come, protect your own. and we'll try and be nice to the others, but it's within the boundaries that we set, and that's the bit I find really challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is brilliant. When hard times come, protect your own first, and if you've got anything spare change, then you give. And that we do in this country do have a culture of that type of thinking.
Yeah,
you know, how can we have any more people come to our country? We can hardly look after ourselves. Which I say, my goodness me, what do we need to look like as a country before we finally think, oh, we're all right?
Absolutely. Thank you. Next, did you have anything more to add to that? Do you want to come to the mic, or you have... Come on, I don't want to take your voice.
Sorry. Like I said, I'm not going to go through very many of them, but one of the big things again was that there do seem to be some people who are always right, which I think I've touched on a little bit, but just no give at all in this is my opinion and you are wrong, and especially if those people are racist or sexist or homophobic or anything like that, you kind of very difficult to love them.
Yeah. And I think I brought that one up, didn't I? So I was talking about someone who, in every conversation, is either racist, sexist, or homophobic. And I kind of think every time in the conversation I'm praying that we don't have to deal with all three. But he always delivers on one of them. And he is really, really hard. And sometimes I must confess, most of the time, because he's part of the family, I don't push back in a way that I think maybe I should. And that's always disturbed me, and I think I need to work on that. But it's not easy. It's not easy in your families, is it? And close friends who, how do you find the words to challenge them? Thank you, Eunice, thank you. What about this table over here? Would any of you like to come up and add? Neil, who's been writing? Go for it, Lizzie.
You do.
So the main thing was like those in different groups, whether that be like EDF members or really evangelical, not inclusive at all, and then like even family that are potentially part of those groups that are really not inclusive, and that's then really hard to love. And then I went for like opponents in football, because obviously that was one example. And then as another one was those who misstory you, so who are given a false narrative of who you are. That's then really, really hard to then like love them, because you're like, no, you're not saying who I am, and that's really frustrating. So those are arguments.
That's fascinating. Thank you, Lizzie. I really heard the last one around people who misrepresent you, who misstep you, and because in the end of the day, that's one of the that's how I see the 10 Commandments of thou shalt not steal. I think it's possible, we think of stealing as possessions, but I think it's possible to steal people's identity by character assassination, by saying they're this and not that. There are many ways to rob and to steal that Jesus talked about. And what do we do with that? And when is the right time to actually absolutely push back? Simon, do you ever feel you've been misrepresented, either in the work you do or in your life? And how do you challenge that?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time, bless you. Go for it.
Yeah, really difficult.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
I'm a bit, should I say that? I have got some autistic traits, right, which means that I can seem to be a bit ruder than I am when I'm just genuinely interested in something. And I can end up upsetting people because I don't always subscribe to the polite English way of conversational narratives that we're supposed to say, or not talk about. But I think that's the thing I probably find most difficult. I was actually at the table, that was my thing. But the other thing I was saying about pushing back, again, I'm exhausted at fighting everything.
Yeah.
So what I've had to learn, and particularly when it comes to family, but also other things, in some of the institutional stuff, some of the stuff going on in our community, some of the political stuff. And what I've had to learn, I've had to ask what are my battles? I think it's really, really important that Sometimes you look at people, I mean, we get some people coming into the Haven Centre, I don't want to be too stereotypical, but they're generally in the older generation. And they come in and they say stuff, their language and everything else, and I'll gently challenge, but I look at those people and I just go, you know, what is my battles? You know, do I need to go all out on everybody and everything, every member of my family, and win this one? And I think that's really important. Otherwise, we would just get burnt out.
Absolutely. And maybe part of loving yourself is knowing what the battles are, knowing where your boundaries are, and knowing what is going to absolutely penetrate that boundary and into you, and not letting that happen. Because I don't think Jesus is saying, be a doormat for God. There you go, let everyone walk over you. That's not loving yourself, is it? But the challenge of what are your battles, what are your boundaries, what is injurious, and what is injurious to you can change, can't it? So it can change as the day goes on. At your very best, you might be able to go, I'm okay with that. But when you're having a struggle, then it's different. So living is exhausting, isn't it? Naomi, come to the mic.
Yeah, I wanted to add something kind of on that theme from a conversation we were having with a friend yesterday who does kind of really similar sort of work, community work, trying to make sure people are fed, that kind of thing. And we were talking about actually different people respond to different parts of that work, and some people feel called really, really deeply to be on the ground with people every single day and make sure they're fed today and make sure that like you can try and stop the worst from happening to that person in that moment. And other people just can't deal with the stress of that, but they feel released when actually they're given the freedom to imagine a better future and how we're going to get to a situation where people don't have to fight every day to be fed. And so it's like not everyone has to do all of these things all of the time.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And on the battle thing, because this was a revelation came to me a couple of months ago. So when we're talking about the issues, so we're talking about maybe Black Lives Matters issues, and we're talking about LGBT issues. One of the things we're talking about is what we need. So for me, what I need white people to do the work before I get invited into the space to talk about black issues. Because then, because that takes away that sense of vulnerability of just the ignorant questions that I have to field before I even get in. And I think that is all of the issues here. So I think that when we've got people that have been either discriminated against or marginalised, I think that we ourselves feel that we, you know, me as a man, if I feel, you know, I need to be talking to more men about how we, you know, understand people that aren't men and the language that we use before you get, you know, somebody coming in to do that work. And I think we do feel a bit more empowered or agencies. We need to be doing the work ourselves within our own ignorant groups.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you so much for that. Oh, table at the back. Would anyone, you don't have to come up if you don't want to, or just shout, or I don't want to put you under any pressure at all. Feel free to stay there and just add anything that you wish.
Anyone on the internet?
Anyone on the internet?
Can I just tweet that comment?
Inclusive gathering church today.
People who abuse power, militant atheists, people who hate it and they're traffic, people who aren't polite and courteous, people who make assumptions, hypocrites, some cases family, colleagues, people that don't act in the way that we think they should act.
Absolutely.
That pretty covers like everybody, doesn't it?
You did a great job on that back table. That was fabulous. Do you want to add any? Which one of all of them that you've named did you end up talking about a lot? Did you have any observations on them?
We were talking a lot about the bottom one and about how the fact that families on both are easy to love and hard to love. And the fact that, that bottom one, which is, it's not necessarily fair to hold people to the standards that we have for ourselves and what we think. You know, if we say that it's hard to
Thank you, that was so helpful. I think it's really interesting to think about cultural diversity, isn't it? You know, culture isn't monochrome. Culture is a great big word that describes, there are many, many different cultures in this room. Politeness is interesting, isn't it? We're largely socialised into patterns of politeness. You know, I was brought up to say please and thank you, you know, to be polite. And we were talking about the challenge of patriarchy on our table, and brought up to be quiet as a woman, just to say the right thing, do the right thing. That was a real big, you know, normal way of approaching things. And then when you meet people who are different, and who have different ways of looking at the world, the danger of going, my way is right, your way is wrong, I'll include you, I'll exclude you. I was taught a lot about worldviews when I worked with women who were caught up in sex work, who saw no need to be polite to the vicar at the church. They called me vicar, they didn't, there's no point explaining titles, is there sometimes. And I remember the day one of them came in and just said, Eunice, are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm fine, thank you. She says, well, you ought to tell your face. Eunice, you don't look all right, you don't sound all right, and I don't think you're all right. But if you just want to come in here and lie, feel free. The vicar's lying today, everyone. And she went on a whole thing of, the vicar's lying today. And I just, you know, I felt so, like, challenged by it. And, like, because we were in a group where the deal was, you show up and you tell the truth. You tell the truth about what drugs you've taken that week. You tell the truth about what's been happening. And she basically said, don't you tell me to show up and be real if you're not prepared to be real. And I'm like, fair enough. Fair enough. Could have been offended, couldn't I? You could choose to take offence. I didn't. It was actually a massive learning thing of, oh yeah, of course, call me out on that. You know, help me to be real. And that gets back to loving God, loving ourselves, loving others. That whole thing of that mutuality that Simon talked about, that flow back that you get, the buzz. You talked about the community room, like being really challenging and really beautiful at the same time. And that's how I experienced that group of women particularly. Final table over here. Does anyone want to come to the mic and say, Faith, go for it.
Yeah, so how we talked about easy people to love are people who agree with us and share our values. People who are like us, like socioeconomically, share our race, education level, friends, and maybe people who, you know, we can show compassion to. Challenge to love, we used a couple words that maybe I shouldn't repeat. But one thing, like abusers and people who are controlling of other people, especially people who, we talk about manipulative conversationalists, like people who don't listen but try to get you to turn toward what they think. And there's a lot of passion against people who either don't recycle or recycle, or they recycle improperly. A lot of passion around that. And we talked about the importance, like you said, of setting boundaries, learning what our own boundaries are and how we need to be protected as a way to learn to love people who are difficult, and knowing what it is to love ourselves.
Lovely. There, stay there. Out of all of them, which one would you like to highlight for us, maybe that hasn't been attended to? I think you've told us recycling got passion.
Yeah.
Which one would you pick?
Well, of the other ones, abusers and those in professional relationships, and sometimes family, depending on family, it can be difficult.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah?
I think, what do we do about loving people who are abusers? I think that is a real challenge. Healthy boundaries. Jesus didn't say that we just took everything. So what we do with that is really important. And I hope it's really clear this afternoon, I'm not saying that you let yourself be walked over, that you don't put those healthy boundaries. I think Jesus said a lot about not making walls between people, but I think he said a lot also about setting boundaries. Boundaries, for me, these boundaries that Jesus talks about are like fences, permeable to love, grace and generosity. Not walls, they're like fences.
that are permeable to the love, grace and generosity of God, but they keep the rubbish out. You have all of a right to keep the rubbish out. Simon, do you want to add a final word to any of this?
Final thought.
Final thought. Go for it.
I go to that thing. I think easy people to love. Right, so we talk about people that love that are like us.
Yeah.
One of my favourite verses in the Bible is in Revelation 7, where it creates this incredible picture that there will be every tongue, every tribe, every nation, every, all in this one place, in harmony, clothed in all the colours of the rainbow, if you like. Not white, because we don't think that's pure, do we? It's so shows, isn't it? Anyway, and I think for me, that is such a difficult space to imagine, because, even here, I can put everybody sitting here, if we get deep, we think, oh yeah, we're sort of like on the same level. And if I was to say, cheeky, put your hand up if you're a Tory, I don't expect I will see many hands. I might see one or two, keep it down to be checked.
Don't tell Simon.
And I think for me this is the challenge. And I'm not talking about welcoming people in that are going to cause harm, but I am talking about how do we truly, as the Church of God, how do we truly cultivate and create those spaces where we can be a shining example to what it looks like to be a people of difference, people of different theologies, different values, different ideologies, yet still live in that space together, that harmony, beautiful space. Now again, I preface this, I'm not talking about letting that space be open to abuse or harm, but there are many people that do not share my values. There are many people that voted for Boris Johnson and voted for Brexit who actually are good people. How do I share my space with them, fully accepting them and listening to one another?
Beautiful. Simon, thank you so much for coming along this afternoon. We're coming to a close now, friends, and I'm going to invite Gary to come back and P2. We're going to sing that song again, just over us all, and I'm going to close with a prayer. There's a bit of paper with the words on it again. Pick it up if you like them. Forget it if you don't. The bit of paper that's got the Matthew verse on the back of it has got the prayer that I'm going to end with. We're going to invite Pete and Danielle to come and sing You Make Beautiful.
You make beautiful things, you make beautiful
Holy God, we thank you that you make beautiful things out of each one of us. We thank you that you call us to love you, to love ourselves and to love others. Thank you for the fab people in this room, for the conversation we have shared, for the challenges we have been offered. We thank you for Simon and for all of the work that goes on at the Haven. We thank you for the gift that food pantries are to the community. Holy God, we pray for the many people who are struggling. And in the cost of living crisis, we would pray that you would open up our hearts and the hearts of many people who love you and people of peace, to respond to people who are experiencing poverty, to include people who are not like us, to respond to the challenge, to be the people you call each one of us to be. Amen. Amen. Friends, as we come to an end now, I'm going to hand over to our lovely pastor, Danielle, who's already been blessing us with the gift of music. And I think we're going to hear from Jonah and Naomi, but I'll leave it to Danielle to introduce them. Yeah.
I'll just introduce Jonah in just a second. Just to say, welcome to there's some new faces today, and it's really wonderful to have you. You'll see there's these little cards on our table that kind of explain that every week is a bit different at IGB. So this is our Real Talk week where we sit around tables, as you've obviously experienced. Next Sunday we're doing something a bit different, which is it's the 5th Sunday of the month, so we do something special. And we're going to have brunch together at Boston Tea Party, which is just around the corner. And we're really happy to cover brunch for folks that come along between 9:30 and 11:30. And then the week after that, we're back here for the first Sunday of the month, which is much more like you'd experience like a regular church gathering, I suppose, where we share communion together. There's a bit more music and song, a bit more storytelling, and it'll be great to have you there for that. Can I invite my new friend Jonah to come forward and make a little announcement for us?
Thank you, Danielle, for inviting me over, and thank you everyone for being so welcoming to me today. This is my first time here, but yeah, everything's been so lovely, and cookies were great too. So, cookie, I should say. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about an event that I'm putting on, which is in 3 weeks' time. But just a little bit of background. A few years ago, I went to a festival, Christian festival, and my faith was going through some tough times, and I was struggling with some of the things that I'd grown up to believe in my faith tradition. And there was a speaker that came on in this festival, and some of what he said really made me quite angry, and there was a lot of commotion in the room, a lot of emotional kind of manipulation. That's how I saw it anyway. Lots of calling downs of blessings and lots of promises which I thought weren't true, and that for me, for some reason, seeing everyone in the room shouting out to get these blessings because of this speaker, that for me was kind of the straw that broke, the camel's back, the camel being my faith. And I had a really strong emotional reaction to that. I was very angry, actually, and everyone in my family knew that something had changed. But I didn't want to stay in that angry place. But then for the next couple of years, I was very anxious about my faith. Was I going to leave it behind? And I was very close to it at many points. But I thought, if I'm going to leave faith behind, if I'm going to leave Jesus behind, I want to make sure I'm going to leave the best version of it possible. Not just the versions that I've inherited, or some of the portrayals that I don't agree with now. So that started a journey of me looking at some other interpretations of how we look at theology, how we look at inclusivity, and what we believe about what happens when we die, and all these big questions, And so that journey is still ongoing for me now, but it also affected my family too. And at first, I think they thought I was going off the rails. But soon they they jumped off the train too, and they started going off the rails with me. And soon we found that we had a lot more in common than we thought. And I don't know if you guys have had your own kind of deconstructive journey.
A few of us.
I suspected as much. That's why I came, but I don't want to assume. But yeah, deconstruction, you know, it's a loaded term and it means something different for everyone. But essentially, yeah, I think a lot of us have been re-examining our faith in recent years and thinking, what does it mean to follow Jesus? And what does it mean to read the Bible? You know, what is the Bible and what does it do? How do we read it? And things like that. So I'm putting on an event in 3 weeks' time, which is called Borderlands. The metaphor there really encapsulates for me where I feel like a lot of us are at. We're kind of in between these states of thinking and of being. And the aim of the event is not to give a place where all the answers are given, because we know that we don't have those. But it is a place where people feel, hopefully, will feel that they can come and sit in that in-between space, feel loved and accepted in there, to ask questions, to explore some of those difficult topics that I mentioned, and to also hear from some really good speakers too. I'm going to be loitering somewhere where it's appropriate for me to loiter.
Can I tell something about the practicalities?
Practicalities.
What track?
Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. It's going to be on the 11th of June, which is a Saturday. It's going to be roughly 9 till 5. Times haven't been finalised yet, but 9 till 5 roughly. It's going to be in Bromsgrove at a place called the Greenhouse, which, if any of you know Ash and Ange, that is kind of their baby. It's not a baby, it's a house, but you know what I mean. Yeah, so hoping that it's going to be around 30 to 50 people at the moment. We've only got probably 20 so far, but that's the kind of range that we're looking for. So it'll be reasonably intimate, so hopefully you won't feel like you're going into this huge flood of people. The kind of format that you've got going on here today, the real talk, I think there'll be some similarity on the day with that too. After some of the talks, there'll be time for discussion in small groups, and there'll also be Q&A, or Q&R, question response rather than answer, as a big group too. I'm going to be at the back. I won't tell you the link because it's very long, it's got lots of numbers in it and stuff, but if you type in Borderlands and then Eventbrite, you know that event platform, yeah, you should find it. It's not the NHS one. Don't go to that. Well, you can go to that by all means, but it's not deconstruction.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Jenna. And I'll share the link in our various groups and things like that. Thanks so much for sharing that too. It's a big thing to come and meet with people and share something. Annie, can I invite you to come up?
Cool, so mine is much less interesting. Yeah, so basically everything that we do here and Danielle's role and all of that is made possible by the Methodist Church, which is amazing. But it's also made possible by the effort and the resources that we all put in as a community to make it happen. So the long-term aim for this is that we'll eventually become financially sustainable as ourselves, and so that Methodist Church can go and give money to other people to do more new, exciting things. But to do that, it means that we are going to ask you for money, so that we can continue to do what we do. It goes towards hiring this place, it goes towards the food, it goes towards kind of paying people back for their time and other expenses that they do to make this all happen. So I'm going to also loiter at the back, not too close to Jonah so you don't get as confused. But I'll be holding a card machine if that's if you want to make a payment that way. You can give me cash. You can set up a standing order using the instructions that are on the website. And yeah, we just want to invite you, if you feel like you're in the position to be able to do that, there's absolutely no pressure at all, and please do look at getting involved in other ways, in joining teams, but if you feel like you can contribute to what we do financially, then that's most welcome, and you can chat to me about that.
Well, we're going to just close now with the blessing that we share every week. Normally, you might have noticed, we didn't put the big screen up today. We were trying to be simple. But some of you will know this, because we share it every week. May we live fully, may we love wastefully, and may we have the courage to be all that God has created us to be. Well, it's been really great to have you, and we'll see you hopefully over the next couple of weeks. Feel free to grab more snacks and have a bit of a chat before you head off. And if you have the energy to pull a chair to the side, we wouldn't complain about that either. Thanks, everybody.